An Eritrean asylum seeker will be kicked out of Britain to France under Keir Starmer's tough new border crackdown after judges threw out his desperate legal challenge. The bombshell High Court decision landed just hours after the Home Office successfully booted out the first migrant under the controversial one-in, one-out deal with Paris, reports The Independent. The unnamed Eritrean faces removal at 6:15 a.m. on Friday morning despite claiming he was a trafficking victim. Home Office chiefs insisted there wasn't enough proof to back up his modern slavery allegations. The news comes as a furious GB News migrant row explodes as Nigel Farage rages, "Stop this nonsense." Mr. Justice Sheldon delivered a crushing blow to the migrants' hopes, ruling against claims he was denied procedural fairness because officials moved too quickly on his trafficking case. In my view, the Secretary of State did have sufficient information to make the reconsideration decision, the judge declared on Thursday afternoon. The court heard how Mr. Justice Sheldon said ministers were right to conclude the Eritrean's modern slavery account couldn't reasonably be believed. Officials pointed out the migrant would get another chance to submit trafficking claims once he reaches France. Trafficking claims sparked courtroom battle. A preliminary medical report suggested the asylum seeker might be a trafficking victim based on his dangerous journey through Libya, Barrister Sonali Naik KC told the packed courtroom. The Eritrean insisted he was kidnapped and forced into slave labor in Libya, according to court documents. Home Office lawyers hit back, saying France can handle trafficking claims from people exploited outside French borders. Ms. Naik KC argued France's support system for modern slavery victims falls short of Britain's national referral mechanism. First deportation sends strong message. The dramatic court case follows the first successful removal under the UK-France treaty, with one migrant landing in Paris on Thursday morning. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood hailed the milestone moment, declaring, "This is an important first step to securing our borders. It sends a message to people crossing in small boats. If you enter the UK illegally, we will seek to remove you." But Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp demanded Labour must come clean about whether the removal was voluntary. He blasted, "Since Labour announced their returns deal, 9,909 illegal immigrants have crossed the channel, and we are supposed to celebrate one solitary return?" In August, it was widely reported that the government expected 50 migrants per week to be deported under Starmer's one-in, one-out scheme. Legal loophole sparks government crackdown. Another Eritrean asylum seeker managed to halt his France deportation on Tuesday evening after a high court judge gave him breathing space to fight a negative modern slavery ruling. The 25-year-old won a 14-day reprieve to challenge the Home Office decision that rejected his trafficking claims. Ministers are now moving to slam shut legal loopholes that allow asylum seekers to delay removals by challenging modern slavery decisions. Under tough new rules, migrants earmarked for the France deal will be blocked from appealing Home Office trafficking rulings while in Britain. Their only option will be mounting legal challenges from abroad, including from France itself. The UK government has scored another major legal victory in its high-stakes border enforcement drive, with judges throwing out the challenge of an Eritrean asylum seeker facing removal to France. The ruling, delivered just hours after the first deportation under Labour's controversial one-in, one-out scheme, has sparked celebrations among ministers and furious debate across the political spectrum. At the heart of the case lies the story of an Eritrean man who insisted he was a victim of trafficking, claiming he had been kidnapped and forced into slave labor during a harrowing journey through Libya. His lawyers argued that the Home Office moved too quickly to dismiss his allegations, depriving him of procedural fairness. But Mr. Justice Sheldon, presiding over the High Court, rejected the claim, stating that ministers were right to conclude that the man's account couldn't reasonably be believed. The Eritrean national is now scheduled for removal at 6:15 a.m. on Friday morning. He will be placed on a flight to Paris under the terms of the new Franco-British Treaty, the centerpiece of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's sharpened migration strategy. The ruling came after intense legal wrangling in a packed courtroom, where barrister Sonali Naik KC presented evidence suggesting the asylum seeker could indeed be a trafficking victim. A preliminary medical report cited the man's perilous journey through Libya as consistent with patterns of exploitation. Despite this, Home Office lawyers stood firm, insisting that France was capable of processing trafficking claims even when the alleged exploitation occurred outside French territory. They highlighted that the UK's National Referral Mechanism, NRM, for victims of modern slavery, while more robust in scope, could not become a loophole allowing every migrant who arrived via small boat to delay removal. Mr. Justice Sheldon ultimately sided with the government, delivering a blow to campaigners who have argued that the new removals deal risks sidelining vulnerable victims of trafficking. He stressed that the Secretary of State had acted with sufficient information and was entitled to move quickly on the case.
Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood wasted no time in hailing the judgment as another milestone. Standing at the Home Office podium, she declared, "This decision underlines our determination to deliver on the promises we made to the British people. If you enter the UK illegally, you cannot expect to stay. The courts have recognized that our system is robust and fair, and that France is a safe country where claims will be properly considered." Mahmood described the ruling as proof that the one-in, one-out agreement with Paris is beginning to bite, despite skepticism from critics who have accused Labour of over-promising. The Eritreans case came just a day after the first removal under the UK-France deal, when another migrant was placed on a plane to Paris early Thursday morning. That deportation was described by Mahmood as an important first step to securing our borders, but it has also reignited fierce debate about the practicality of the scheme. Conservative figures, led by Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, have derided Labour's approach as symbolic rather than substantive. Speaking in a fiery Commons exchange, Philp blasted, "Since Labour announced their returns deal, nearly 10,000 illegal immigrants have crossed the Channel. And yet we are supposed to celebrate one solitary return? This is smoke and mirrors, not border control." Nigel Farage, the former UKIP leader and prominent GB News host, went further, describing the policy as nonsense and calling for a complete end to what he characterized as open borders disguised as control. Under the treaty signed with French President Emmanuel Macron earlier this year, Britain has agreed to a reciprocal returns deal that allows migrants who cross illegally into the UK to be deported back to France, provided that France agrees to accept a roughly equivalent number of UK-bound migrants in exchange. The government's stated aim is to remove up to 50 individuals per week, a figure Starmer's team insists is realistic once the scheme gathers pace. Critics, however, argue that the current pace, 2 removals in a week, falls far short of the targets and risks creating false expectations among the public. Officials maintain that early cases are bound to face heavy legal challenges, but stress that the system will accelerate as precedents are established and loopholes are closed. Indeed, loopholes remain a central obstacle. Just days earlier, another Eritrean asylum seeker successfully delayed his deportation after a judge granted him a 14-day reprieve to challenge a Home Office decision rejecting his trafficking claims. That case has amplified concerns among ministers that traffickers are coaching migrants to use modern slavery defenses as stalling tactics. In response, the government has announced new rules that will prevent migrants earmarked for removal to France from appealing Home Office trafficking decisions while still in the UK. Instead, they will be required to mount any legal challenge from abroad, including from France itself. Supporters of the policy argue this is the only way to prevent endless delays, while critics warn it could strip genuine victims of their rights. The courtroom battle over the Eritrean migrant sheds light on the complex intersection of migration and modern slavery. Human rights groups emphasize that many asylum seekers pass through regions like Libya, notorious for human trafficking networks, before crossing the Mediterranean and the Channel. Campaigners fear that rapid removals risk sweeping up genuine victims alongside opportunists. They point to the preliminary medical report in the Eritrean's case.